Robin Griffith, and we farm in the Jewel area in Kansas. And we're going to be talking about, we double crop corn, or sunflowers, and we wanted to have a cover crop also after wheat, but we decided to start companion cropping everything together. Of course, sunflowers are our primary crop in this. We started out by planting 30-inch corn with a 15-inch planter, and we put the peas in between sunflowers. Started planting 30-inch sunflowers, putting the spring and winter peas in between, just to kind of give a little bit of diversity there. It worked out well because the herbicide that we're using, Spartan, is labeled for all three, so we were able to still use our herbicide and keep the weeds down. We did that for a year or so, and now we've gone to using buckwheat and just a lot of other things, cowpeas, more species that will grow during the warm season. And we're also implementing the cooler seasons, because once it starts cooling down in the fall, of course your cowpeas and everything start pretty much stopping, and then your cool seasons come up in it. This is just a picture of planting one of these mixes. That's the planter, but works with the drill or anything. Of course, we strip our wheat for leaving more carbon out there, I think.
And when he was telling about that, like that box there would have sunflowers, that one there would have peas in it. It's all planted at the same time, different plates at that time, and we've got pictures this year. He just put mixed all three things, or mixed the whole thing together, put it in all the boxes and planted. So,
Yeah.
that's how we started.
And you guys haven't had much trouble with different seed sizes, as far as
No,
emergence and
we
drilling or
not.
planting?
No, we just plant her all at inch and a half, 2 inches.
It isn't going to be perfect.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
I look in the mirror.
Yeah. This is good.
I'm used to that.
This is the 30-inch sunflowers with the peas in between. These were actually cowpeas and non-GMO soybeans, group 8s. Decided to go that route this year just because I wanted to fill in that row. This was kind of a place that I thought we were going to have a lot of weeds, which if you look at the side of the field, we were going to have a lot of weeds. So I'm glad we used our herbicide, but the intensity is not there. But we do have weed control. We do have almost 100% cover. And that's probably first week of August, so that's probably 5 weeks into growth. This is the same mix as the last picture, except we just threw it all together. We used a double hole soybean plate. I think you probably use a regular soybean plate or even the sunflower plate. They'd run really fast then, so we're in 15-inch rows here. Your seed spacing's kind of erratic through there. We kind of decided, Mother Nature doesn't have, everything 7 inches apart, so it didn't really matter, I guess. But this was pretty early on. I think this was like probably 3 or 4 weeks after planting. We had moisture to get everything up. We did hit some moisture. I think this was right after an event of gotten some moisture. That was the last we got. But about by week 5, the canopy here was just as good as it was just as good as the picture before. So.
Yeah.
Or are you still using herbicide for?
On that field, yes. Those were newly acquired fields. I knew we were going to probably have some pigweed pressure. That's why I like using the Spartan herbicide. And the cowpeas, non-GMO soybeans, they're labeled for that. So.
And since then, over the years, we figured out that we wanted to be a little more diverse. A drill allows you to be very diverse. You can put anything you want through that thing. And you end up with something like this, pretty erratic on the spacing. We'd rather be harvesting sunlight than wasting it up heating the soil up. So we really like the buckwheat. It brings in a lot of pollinator, beneficial insects, cowpeas, rapeseed, just to name a few of them. We really like the cowpeas with the sunflowers because they really do get up out of the ground. They kind of help everything else get up and going.
That's the buckwheat that have the little white flowers.
Yeah.
The buckwheat, yes.
That's a common buckwheat, not the stuff we've been trying to kill.
Yeah.
Buckwheat is, okay.
they
This stuff
make,
gets
they
about 2
make
feet
pancakes
tall.
and pillows out of it.
Okay,
It's,
And these aren't oils?
Oil flowers,
They're
yes.
always,
Yes.
you've been working exclusively with oils versus?
yeah, yeah, and where this is a double crop, I don't know if we have enough growing time to grow a confectionery flower. I don't know.
Yeah.
But our market, our local market will take oil, so that's what we grow. Another thing is a lot of people ask, well, how much nitrogen are you growing the cowpeas for nitrogen? No, that's just an added benefit if we get any from them, which they nodulate very well. Cowpeas take off in the ground a lot faster than, yeah, that's a nodule cowpea.
Yeah.
First year cowpeas ever been on that ground, so I'd say that's pretty good.
Mhm.
But we like the cowpeas because, or I like cowpeas because they really cover that ground faster. I mean, your sunflowers won't canopy completely until, late August, but if you have cowpeas in there, first part of August, it's completely canopied.
And that's kind of the reason we went away from the winter pea and the spring pea, because you're planting them out of season, out of their prime season, so they come out of the ground and it's 110 degrees, and it's like they want to go back down, because it's hot.
And we weren't getting the canopy from them, but we still put those in the mixes. We're gonna start putting a lot more of them because we need more legumes later on in the season, because, I mean, the weather or the temperature forecast shows 40 degrees, the cowpeas just die. They're like, no, I'm not doing that.
Another benefit of that buckwheat right there is besides the beneficial insects, it does create a phosphate, or an acid that makes your Bray-2 phosphate more available, and recycles that, and it's a very shallow root. So or not a very shallow root, but it's a very fibrous shallow root that conditions the soil tremendously.
And they use very little nutrients, they use very little water. They'll tolerate the heat. They pretty much go dormant if it's way too hot, but if it starts cooling down at night, they just grow like crazy. Another thing we did this year is we threw in some mustard. We found that we were bringing in even more bugs. Instead of just having the buckwheat, we had some food grade yellow mustard thrown in there.
And what they do, see, they'll still be blooming later on when the flowers are still blooming. And I guess we ought to tell, that's why we like the buckwheat, because it gets the predators in there before your sunflower heads come out.
These will bloom in about 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah.
That will bloom in about 5 to 6, 7 weeks, and then your flowers bloom about 7 to 8 weeks away. But that's a nice thing, kind of getting that whole all those flowering crops in there. The problem is, well, we're going to continue working with that. Is we need something blooming like a fava bean or something blooming in September. So we continue bringing more and more insects in, and since we started doing all this, and really we found out when we were just doing the winter peas and cowpeas, or winter peas and spring peas, we didn't have to spray for head moth anymore. So there's an insecticide completely out. A lot of the flowers we planted last year didn't even have insecticide on the seed treatment or fungicide.
Now, when you say you didn't have to spray for head moth, did you see a diminished number? What exactly, what did you see as a change as far as the head moth entry to the field, the numbers, it was diminished? Can you explain that?
We see the head moth out there, but there's so many more predators out there that,
The head moth numbers were way down.
yeah, they are.
They were down,
But you'll still see some.
for sure.
Yeah, you always see some.
And
You
at
need to
harvest,
spray there for predators to eat. So.
at harvest time, you'll see 1 to 5, I mean, I suppose, maybe a 1 or 2% head moth, but that's not enough to spray for.
No.
But that's one of the, there's a chemical or, something very bad that we're not having to use. If you're getting insecticides thrown over the top, there's $15, $18. And we can solve that with $10 of the seed. So I'd rather fix it biologically than chemically.
Right. And see, these are all planted after wheat, so it's after that first head moth.
Right, you're pretty late at that
Hatch.
stage, yeah.
So we're kind of avoiding that in the first place. But like he said, as soon as we started planting the peas, we noticed we didn't need to spray for the head moth anymore, so.
It was weird because the peas weren't completely blooming. I mean, the spring peas, they would bloom a little bit or, start putting those in. But it was just, we didn't know why, but it was working, so
Yeah.
we kept going.
Yeah.
This is what he grew a whole field of buckwheat, very pretty. That's just a full monoculture. Once you get out of your pickup, I mean, you could be 50 yards away and you could just hear the buzz. There was just bees everywhere. It was awesome. You don't want to grow buckwheat, or you don't want to go check it if you're allergic, probably. But we'd walk through there, and I think we probably walked through there, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks, and I think I got stung once because I picked one up and I was wanting to look at it, and
He didn't like it.
he didn't like it.
And that field right there showed us what kind of a field or a soil conditioner that is, because we were supposed to harvest this for grain, and we got busy harvesting soybeans, excuse me, that fall, and then so we put it off a few days, and we had 3 days of 50-mile-an-hour wind, one from the south, one from the north, one from the south again, so it all ended up on the ground, so we didn't get to harvest it, but the soil that next spring was just, I don't know how to explain it, it was almost wet, and we hadn't had any rain.
We went out there like in early March or something, because we were checking this was the top of the hill, and then the side hill was also planted this, and then in the bottom we double crop soybeans. You know, plant your good ground soybeans or something. But anyways, we were driving on the soybean ground just fine. And the ground was somewhat thawed at that time, and when we got on there, the pickup just spun. And it was just slick as all, and it was just, I mean, it was a line. We don't know why, but we sure liked it.
Yeah.
This is one of we get a lot of our information on the companion crops, the right things to, maybe put together. We kind of use this as a base. We get it from all our gardening websites all over the internet. Wikipedia is a pretty easy one. They've got a whole list of all sorts of different crops. Like if you look down here at the beans, it'll show you all the different plants that it helps. And remember, this is kind of in a gardening situation, but they've done a lot more research on all this. And then it shows what they're helped by, shows what it attracts, and bugs, shows what it repels. So if we have problems with California beetles, that'd be a good one to put in there.
This is kind of an important column right there to tell you what to avoid.
Yeah, what not to plant was on.
Yeah.
That's probably the most important one.
Yeah, I think that'd be a big money saver if we just pay attention to it. But they've already done a lot of the research on their little farms, so, and they're willing to share it with us, so.
And some of it kind of gets, like right here it says, it helps radish here. Then over here where it says avoid, brassicas. So,
Yeah.
some of it you just gotta take. That's
Yeah.
why you look at a lot of different websites, and there's a lot of good ones out there for this.
Yeah.
And they don't all agree, but the general,
What they do agree on, you need to pay attention to it.
yeah.
2 slides earlier, you had your sunflower crop that was out there, and you had all the companion cover crops that you planted with it.
Mm-hmm.
It looks to me like you drilled everything in that field, correct?
Yeah, that's just a drilled mix. We
So-
actually take our hybrid sunflower seed up to, we use green cover seed. They put the mix in, or they mix up the mix and just dump our flowers in it, and then we take it back and we just drill it
How do you harvest it?
with pan heads.
We got a picture of it in a little bit, so.
Okay.
It's a pretty simple outfit. This is kind of what not really a spreadsheet, but just kind of how we put this together. I guess this next one, same thing. You want to separate your warm season and your cool season crops. We've got a total of 760,000 seeds out there, which would be pretty thick for a sunflower crop. But you've got almost 600,000 of them that aren't going to do a whole lot till it cools off. This is an important number there, because you want to be aggressive enough in the warm season to compete out weeds and give you the benefits. And then in the fall, you'll see in a little bit, we've got some rape. Some of this stuff is all gone, but the rape is still going, and that's just how we kind of set up our, decide how to do that, in the sequences and the amounts.
And kind of, if you use the green cover seed, their smart mix calculator, kind of what I like to do is put in your warm seasons in there for your, whatever moisture you decide to put in there. And I like to be in that 75 to 80 range, 85 range on that. And then I'll come back in and add probably another 60 to 75% of your cool seasons, because they'll be growing in a completely different, time of the year. So there's, your cowpeas will pretty much be done. Your buckwheat will pretty much, it'll be already done. It'll seed out, which is actually nice. Volunteer buckwheat's really a pretty cheap cover crop. Then of course when your sunflowers are just pretty much filling their heads, that's when all this stuff takes off, and it really helps out, and it helps keep it covered in there.
These do go ahead and sprout in early, when it's warm, but they just kind of sit there, so. That's kind of what the mix looks like in the drill. That's actually, we got these backwards, so.
This was his mix, right when I filled it, right before I went and planted this whole quarter. I filled the whole drill, never stopped. Probably his roughest quarter. It's got lots of ditches or draws and stuff, and it was kind of, that's why I wanted to use this, because it was probably our roughest field, and that's what it looked like before, and that's what it looked like after.
You can see a little bit of difference, but at harvest time, we really couldn't see that much difference. And the reason we're showing this is we get the question, how about seed separation? The sunflowers are lighter than the cowpeas and the winter peas and all that. If you'll notice back here, we put oats in there at about 8 to 10 pounds. And that helps hold it together along with your buckwheat. That's kind of an unorthodox seed shape and texture, and the same with your sunflowers. So you put those three things together, and it just seems like it kind of holds everything together. And that's the reason the oats are in there.
What kind of settings do you use in your drill?
Well, we do a catch test and go from there.
Kind of start mainly with the pea setting,
Yeah.
because the peas are the heaviest thing you're gonna have. So like if you have cow peas, spring peas, winter peas, and some non-GMO soybeans in there, well, let's say you have 20 pounds total of all that. Well, I'd probably set it for 25 or 26 and then do the catch test. And that's, normally we do 1 or 2 catch tests, but
It takes a couple times to get it set right, but we really hit pretty close this year. I know he said that he didn't have, he had about the right amount of seeds, so. And that's what it looks like coming up. You're gonna notice some grasses in there. That's the millet I put in there. The reason, I thought I had a reason for putting that in, and I figured out I don't want it anymore. I mean, it's a good crop, but I'll show you why here in a little bit. That's what it looked like when we were spraying. We always spray our sunflowers for volunteer wheat, because we have a lot of neighbors plant wheat. We plant some wheat, so we want to be a good neighbor, I guess. And there wasn't much volunteer wheat out in the canopy, but around the edges, some places we don't get a real good stand, like in our parking lots and so forth where the trucks are at. We end up with a lot of volunteer there, so.
What are you using? Spray?
What's that?
What'll kill the volunteer weed?
we're using clethodim. It's a grass herbicide like Select or
Okay.
Just grass only herbicide.
it's just a grass herbicide. It's a contact grass herbicide.
Doesn't kill your oats.
Yeah, it'll kill our
Yeah.
oats. The only reason we put oats in is keep them mixed together. We just decided to do that, and it worked out really well.
And we don't put that many oats in there, but, I mean, it's showing 10 pounds there, and that's really not, in our area, if you're gonna plant a whole, a monoculture of oats, you'd plant 100 pounds, 90 to 100 pounds, so. But there are some do's and don'ts, that I mentioned, and I love that pearl millet, but, I won't do it anymore. And there's a couple of pictures one Sunday I was bored, so I went out and dug up some of these things. These fields were 3 miles apart. Each one of these diggings is out of a different field. And if you notice these roots, they're just kind of separated. I brought them home to wash all the dirt out so I could kind of see what the difference was there. And that's been washed, but it doesn't look like it. I've got a video here I wanna show you. This thing. You probably won't be able to hear the sound, but. It's a sunflower with a sprayed out millet, that's what I'm saying there on the thing. You can see how they pull apart.
If they were in the same area. This plant, less colonized.
And this is from his 15-inch row with everything put together. And he just had a sunflower and a cowpea and a soybean there. So there was nothing killed other than the volunteer wheat.
Pulling on the roots of the soybean, it's pulling apart there.
You see the difference there.
This, I spent 30 minutes washing.
I spent 30 minutes washing this thing,
That one,
3 minutes on that one, about.
soil holding capability is 10 times.
My thought was the soil holding capability on that one is 10 times what that one is. Okay.
So when you killed the millet, it affected the other plants?
I think what it did, yeah, it did.
We kind of destroyed the synergy of all them plants. You kill that one plant and you lose your,
You lose the companion.
yeah.
That's what we did. There is another difference here. This field here has had corn on it. The rotation's been a little bit different. The other one has not had corn on it, so that could have something to do with it. But it was just, I guess I wish I would have taken a before and after picture of all that, because the soil clods, or whatever you want to call it, was about the same size on both of them. But I knew right off the bat that other one was trying to fall apart already, and this one, I just picked up one thing and carried it to the pickup, so. It was, I didn't expect to see this. And, you know, they say don't expect a miracle with cover crops, but you need to look for one, and I think I just witnessed one there. But it was a lesson that I guess I need to share. Don't put something in there you're gonna kill before you go, let them go term if you're gonna plant them, so. And this is the reason the rape is in there. I'd read that rape was pretty good on salines and soils. That right there is I call it the fountain of a saline seed. You can see the kochia grows, the sunflowers don't, but this rape is still going. And actually that whole field was pretty much like that when I harvested the field. It's pretty neat driving on that green mat.
Cause that spot's normally about, quarter to a half an acre big,
Yeah.
but it's, that's the front of the header right there, so it's not too big.
It would have gone clear out here.
There would been nothing but cushion there, so.
Yeah. So maybe we're trying to fix, my idea is trying to fix this biologically. I don't know how it's gonna turn out, but that's the idea of it anyway. And that brings us to, we try to put everything in there that, whatever we put in there needs to have a purpose. We mentioned the buckwheat, the peas, and the reason I was putting the millet in there, I thought, well, it'd get up and go pretty quick and compete some volunteer wheat out, and it did, but then I still had to spray the wheat and kill the millet, so. But I think the millet belongs in the rotation somewhere, though. Just another picture of that. That's that same field. We actually thought this field, where, it had the row space, or the seed spacing and everything like it's supposed to have pretty much. We thought that would beat this one. Some of that we didn't even harvest. Harvested every bit of that, and those were our best flowers out of all of it.
Even though the uniformity doesn't look right there.
Could it be lack of density?
There was same number of plants,
I mean, it looks more open than the other one.
because it's spread out in 15-inch rows.
Yeah.
Okay,
See, go back to the previous picture. I took the pea mix,
okay.
gave him my sunflowers, and then go to the next one. And I just threw them in all, and that's what that
It's the
is.
same thing.
It's still
It's just spread out
8
more.
pounds of cowpeas, 10 pounds non-GMO soybeans, and 24,000 flowers.
Yeah.
Which that's another thing, we're gonna start playing with populations. I think we went too high on population on sunflowers. Way too high probably, because we were thinking maybe we weren't gonna get, maybe a 70% germ on everything by planting everything. I think we got more like a 95 to 97% germ, so I think we're gonna go ahead and start knocking some populations down around the 18 range, 20 range, so.
And the, I guess I know you're gonna ask the question, what did everything make? That field there was 600 and something, 650, something like that.
6 something.
And the drill mix that is back there, that made 4 1/4, something like that. I had another field that looked similar to that, and it was pretty good. In fact, we even ran out of cowpeas on it, and I thought for sure it was gonna win the whole thing. And it ended up 460 or 70, where this here was 4 1/4, so there's significantly no difference, I guess. Oh, and also, this field has no herbicide. None of it has any fertilizer. His reminding the one had any fertilizer, and none of it was sprayed insecticide, so.
Yeah, just a burn down around there right after harvest.
Yeah. Shot it Roundup and.
Yeah,
aim,
I
guess.
drilled that and come back the next day and sprayed it with Roundup, and that's all I had.
Yeah.
Well, until we sprayed out the vulture weed.
Which, and he told you about the reason he used Spartan on that field.
Well,
It was-
I think
it
the
was
whole
a good
field kind of
choice.
looked like that.
Oh, yeah, it was a very good move.
I had to skip out there, and I'm really glad I used it.
That's the sunflower pan head we use. It's very simple. Those pans are 5 feet long, and they're 9 inches wide, 3-inch gaps. So it gives you, every foot you got a pan. We put this header together. That was brand new. We just got it put together when we took this picture. We've had one similar to that since 2000. I got a different combine. They made it so it wouldn't fit, so I had to get a new head. So they make sure you got to update everything once in a while.
But one of the main reasons why we're doing this, I guess, or no, go ahead, is, we were double cropping flowers for a long time, and all of a sudden all these cover crops come in, and they wanted us to plant the cover crops after our wheat. We liked our sunflowers, so that's why we kind of did it. We don't have any livestock. I think we should start integrating some custom grazing and stuff, but this is our way of just a pure grain farmer to have that full season, almost a full season cover crop right there, and still get it paid for with your seed. I mean, there's very few expenses in this. This year was a really bad year, like we said. We're averaging probably over farm total 500 pounds. One of the biggest things was, I think it's this mix actually on that field. It was 50% oil.
Yeah, that's what I forgot to mention with our yields.
And a farm total, I think you average about 48%, 48 and a quarter.
49 something.
And I was right there in that 47, 48%. So
The quality's been there.
the quality just erupted since we've been doing it.
That happened even when the first year we planted these winter peas with the sunflowers. That happened to be a really good double crop sunflower year. We had 1,500-1,600 pound flowers that year, running mid 44,
45%.
Yeah, mid 40s, which we've been striving to get in that 42, 43, anything over 40, and all of a sudden we were hitting that.
And one of the things was that year we had a lot of the local or neighboring farmers. They threw out some double crop flowers that year just in the monoculture, and they were getting docked. They were in the upper 30s in the percent, so they were getting docked on their oil.
Now, we don't know what all the difference was, but we're
Yeah, they
gonna
weren't same
credit
fields,
the
but-
companions. And then this year, last year was a pretty tough year also. The oil still was really good, even though the pounds weren't there like we want. And then this year, had that load go 50%, and as tough a year as it was, we're just amazed that the quality's still there.
So where are you going after this? Are you coming back to a corn crop interseeded, or what's the next plan after
This will be probably Milo.
Probably not.
Usually we follow them with all this.
Yeah.
Corn sometimes. I mean,
We have followed sunflowers with some soybeans.
Are you keeping them mono, or are you gonna start experimenting with interseeding on them as well?
we're gonna do some double crop corn this year in a companion mix.
With a companion.
We try to keep our experimentations on our double crops, so we don't have to mess with our
Insurance,
crop insurance.
because you can't insure a double crop anyways, they won't insure it, so they can't tell you how you can do it.
It's all, our double crops are all risk anyway, so why not
Yeah.
shoot for it, so. But anyway, that's,
What would your total crop rotation usually be?
Usually, I mean, kind of in a base rotation, we go with, just starting with wheat, we go double crop flour mix, corn or milo, soybeans, right back to wheat.
but every field has its own deal too, so.
Yeah,
I've got
That's
fields
really
I've
just the
had
base.
in beans for 4 years, now that's too long, because you don't have any carbon left, so.
sometimes on dry years, it's hard to keep growing, your spring oats for cover, your winter rye for cover, stuff like that, so.
But we've been trying to put a cover crop in behind every crop we can, anytime we can.
And that's one of the nice things about this mix is we're wanting to introduce more and more legumes in our, instead of wheat, milo, and corn, and then just 1 year soybeans, you still only 1 year soybean, or 1 year legume out of 3. But you do this, now you're half legumes, because you have legumes in this mix. So we're introducing cool season legumes, warm season legumes, along with the soybeans as a monoculture later, but
And we have brassicas in there that we probably wouldn't have anywhere.
yeah, you can't even see any of the cool seasons.
No, all that cool season stuff, that's 600,000 seeds, they're down in there yet.
So now, when you put in your canola and your alfalfa, did you use GMO so that you can maintain those plants if you do periodic roundups, or did you use conventional seed?
They're all conventional.
They're all conventional?
Yeah.
In this mix, yes.
There's no herbicide tolerant in any of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Even the sunflowers, they're not Clearfield or Express or nothing, they're just,
Yeah, if we get weeds in our flowers, we don't use the Clearfield, so we better keep them clean to be out to begin with, so.
Well, I just wondered, when I saw that mix and I seen the canola, which of course we know there's Clearfield and Roundup canola, and of
Sure.
course alfalfa, we know there's also.
And we've talked about putting that in some of our double crop corn.
Well, I wondered that, where you might be, putting in that low rate of seed and starting to establish basically a perennial situation with those legumes.
Sure.
And I just wondered if.
Yeah.
If there
Yeah.
was some.
We do a lot of thinking in the wintertime, and one day we'll talk about one thing and change our mind the next day, but, sometime somewhere in there, something sticks, and we've talked about those things,
Right. I was just thinking, when I saw that, I thought, well, the low rates of seeds and so slowly building that population up.
Yeah.
But still wanting the potential to use some glyphosate for weed
Sure.
stock cleanup or whatever.
well, you're always gonna have those times.
Right, and that's why I wondered.
And that's a very good point, because I would like to keep my alfalfa.
Right.
years ago.
That's what I was thinking.
I would like to keep it, but I don't know how I'm gonna keep
About a
it,
95 day.
common alfalfa
Right.
by the time I plant or milo this year, because I'll kill it for sure. His oldest.
I take it you're haven't done the Haney test on any of this, but can you tell a difference in the soil, like when you come out of this, just?
Well, I think the biggest thing, was on that digging, because a year ago, when we talked in Salina, somebody asked me if I noticed any difference in the soil. Well, I didn't even go out and check. I was looking on top. We'd just go out and look, and we might dig something, but so that I decided I'd do those roots, and that's the first thing. Our milo yields behind. We had some milo on what we had in this last year.
Soybeans. We had soybeans on what we had last year.
Oh, that's right, soybeans, and they were as good as anything else, if not a little better. So, we've never, since I've been planting flowers, we've probably planted flowers since 2001 or 2002, something like that. And of course, we started out just sunflowers. And we've never never experienced a negative effect to the falling crop. I know other people have told me that they have seen that, but in our case, we've never seen that. So it's not always positive, but it's never been a negative. plus we had that other income. And Deb and I, figure these sunflowers is, you know, a lot of times that flour pays more than the wheat. We went through those times, and basically the flowers kept us in business for several years there, so. We're pretty passionate with the flowers, and it looks, in some of these, it may look like we're a little sloppy with the, you know, conventional wisdom, but we're kind of rethinking all this seed spacing, and, you know, seed depth is still very important. We may have to give up a little control on the seed spacing, but Mother Nature don't have seed spacing either, just like you said, so.
What's your annual rainfall?
Oh, 22 to 26. That's our average. 24 to 26 is where we're supposed to be.
Last year, you said it was good. What was your rainfall last year?
Well, where I live, we were under 18 inches for the year.
But
Where he lived, he was probably around 21 inches, which is normally, we live 17 miles apart. I mean, you go 30 miles west of us, it starts the desert, you go 30 miles east of us and they're irrigated. And they don't need to, because they get 36 inches of rain. But
These all these crops had, we went through a 3-week period there in the end of July, 1st of August. And of course, that's when we took our pretty pictures then. But we had somewhere between 4 and 7 inches on all these fields, which we had no subsoil moisture to start with. And our soils will hold about 2 point something a foot. So we went up about 2 feet of soil, basically. So the flowers still didn't have any subsoil. And that's what flowers really live on. If you're gonna have good flowers, you get a lot of subsoil, or some subsoil. And I think that's why our yields have been so low the last couple of years. We're just living from one rain to the next, so. But still, as dry as it's been, our quality is still there. And in the past, we've cut 300-pound flowers before that we've had trouble getting to 40%. You know, when it's just monoculture, so. And those didn't make a lot of money that year, but they did pay for the seed, but, that's, you know, we've had bad flowers, just flowers, we've had bad yields, I should say, with these companions, but with the companions, we're at least ending up with the good quality, so.
When you harvested the flowers, what percentage of ground cover? I mean,
Basically,
you got 100% ground cover still?
No, we didn't have 100%.
not with live crop.
No,
You still have to
no.
strip weed. I mean, you can't see dirt when we're harvesting, no. Because by that time, all the weed's kind of somewhat laid over. But I've got a picture on my phone, and it's probably close to a 55 to 60% ground cover with brassicas at that point.
That would be similar,
Yeah, that would be.
only it's not, the rest of the field isn't that kosher, it's the wheat. Because there was no wheat there either.
I mean, because it was dry, therefore your flowers weren't great, right?
Right.
And was the stuff still green-ish?
Oh, that's just how the field looked.
Yeah, this is when we're harvesting, this is right before
Yeah, I took
Thanksgiving.
that right out of the combine, I saw that and I thought, whoa, I gotta take a picture
And that's one of the
this.
nice things about having the brassicas in there, is even all the way through Thanksgiving, everything was still green. Right before, well, it was about deer season, whenever that was, first week of December, you know, that morning was like -2, and everything decided to call it winter.
And we'd been down to single digits about 3 times before we took this picture, and they were still, I mean, I'd take a leaf and chew on it, it was still growing. So, but it wasn't long after that, we got down under 0 and they were done. So, and I don't think they'll make it through the winter. I'm pretty sure they just,
No, they're dead.
yeah, they're done. The only thing that'll make it through the winter there is like the alfalfa and maybe a little bit of crimson clover, but, that's, like he said, we're still working on trying to get things to go clear through the winter here too, so,
And that's why I introduced the hairy vetch.
yeah.
I mean, it does cost a little bit more, but if we don't have to go out and drill it again, it's kind of what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
If I'm gonna plant it anyways, I might as well get it started.
So you'll come in the spring then and plant another cover crop before you plant your milo?
No,
No, I don't think so.
Not if you get the.
that's why I had to put the hairy veg in
Yeah.
there. Because hopefully, you know, I normally, I'll just wait till it blooms to spray and plant.
Okay.
That's the best
We're trying
time
to get
do
as
it.
much out of one planting as we can.
And that's why we need to introduce more winter peas into this mix. I mean, we could probably put 10 pounds of winter peas in there, and it's not gonna bother, you know, the water uptake, because a pea doesn't use very much to begin with, but it's not gonna grow in July. So once it actually takes off, all the warm seasons of your flowers are pretty well done. And hopefully we can get, you know, winter peas, crimson clover, you know, because of all the other, you know, the shade, or the, you almost use all the dead forage as a nurse crop. Be able to get your crimson clover, your winter peas, and your hairy veg to be your next spring's cover crop. But you'd already planted it, so that's kind of what we were shooting for.
And another option that you might think about is, out here where you're a little drier, is instead of some mini cowpeas, maybe go with some guar. We're taking a look at that. We don't know anything about it other than it's a really drouthy crop.
And also in the spring, we'll have volunteer buckwheat in there. That's
Yeah.
one of the nice things. Buckwheat will,
See the
it reseeds itself. We even got some up this spring, or this fall. I mean, when we were, well, it was before, I think it was when we were harvesting milo. We
Mhm.
went out there and walked around, and buckwheat was already that tall. We got probably 20% stand.
I wouldn't be surprised if you start seeing that canola too, that stuff seems to.
All
Yeah.
that stuff will start coming up through the spring.
And we'll have a little bit of mustard come, because the mustard actually made seeds, so.
Yep.
Right.
So, we don't mind that, because if we can get something, if we can get 3 cover crops out of this, that'd be great. You know, a summer and a fall and a winter. Something would go till spring, but, you know, every time you know, when you got a few acres to cover, every time you cover that acre, that's wear and tear on your drill or planter or whatever you're using, and that's kind of our purpose here. We're kind of thinking down the road.